This podcast has topics in relation to death, suicide and drug use. This may be confronting for some listeners.
As veterans and first responders, we also use some dark humour in this episode. We ask that you keep in mind that dark humour is a timeless and research-supported method.
I just wanted to use that for dark humour.
I was like...
Yeah, I know, you were killing it. You were killing it. Hang on. This is, yes, the generic road intro.
Yes, and we're owning it.
Yeah. Like we don't actually own it, and I'm pretty sure at some point...
We're going to get copyrighted.
Yeah, Rodel. Imagine they just cancel everything we
That'd be a
own.
good
Start
problem
doing
to have.
cease and desist, you've made it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had any?
Not yet, no.
Oh.
I haven't made it.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Besides the
that's
military.
awkward.
We're like,
Oh, yeah, true that.
Back today, Burso, with another interesting imposter. Welcome, Jarryd Goundrey,
thank you.
comedian, chef, and former soldier.
Former chef as well.
Former chef, yes.
Touch wood. I hope
Michelin
I
hat
don't have to go back to
chef.
that.
Is that correct?
Don't
to
have
say?
Michelin in Australia. We've got hats.
Ah,
So
just
do you know
that,
the history behind the Michelin star?
No.
Just quietly. So invented by the same company, the Michelin tire company. So in the 1920s, yeah, right.
Yeah, random, very
I
random.
really didn't think that was going to be the
So
same.
in the
but-
1920s, if you had a car, you were like loaded and rich, right? So they released a guide for all the rich people to go touring around Europe, and they made a restaurant guide. So go out driving with your friends and go in and stop at this place. And the Michelin tire company, that was their idea, gave these restaurants these ratings, and then it just stayed on forever, and now it's just still named after the tire company.
It makes total but unexpected sense.
Yeah,
That's genius.
it's genius.
It's like BMW with its logo comes from like a propeller spinning.
Because that's that like Nazi days or something.
Yeah.
Of all the companies that
Way to go.
of all the people that are getting cancelled
It's
these
been-
days,
it's been well.
BMW's been awfully good luck in that thing.
It's been a minute 30. Well done. Jared's brought the Nazis into it already. Congrats. Yeah.
How many hats does a chef get in Australia?
Three.
Three?
You can have three chef hats. I worked in two-hatted restaurants. So there's only probably, I'm going to say 6 or 7 3-hatted restaurants in Australia. But yeah, it's pretty high.
And most restaurants would have no hats. Like it's still pretty
99.8%
prestigious.
of them would have no hats. So,
What, can you run us through where the hat thing came from?
well, Everlast, the hat company.
Really?
No, don't.
Yeah, Fubu got involved.
Fubu.
Kubra made
I don't know
a
I
restaurant
mentioned
guide.
Fubu in many years.
Fubu and Aerosport got together and they were like, you know what we should do? That tire company did really well out of this.
Yeah. So Touchwood, never going back to being a chef. So not an enjoyable job.
Yeah.
Fun for being I like cooking. There's like cooking and then there's being a chef.
Do you cook now that you're not a chef? Like you can enjoy it again?
Yes, kind of. But every now and then if I see a clock, there's like still some PTSD stuff. Everyone I've cooked for has been like, you've got real resting weird face. Or you're just like, because I'm enjoying it, but
that
like
like
my
the
face
male
is so
version of resting bitch
stern.
face?
I'm just like, "Argh," and it's just a tea towel over one shoulder, and it's just 1, 2, 3. And like it's
Yelling at the apprentices
it's
doesn't really
just
go
full of
down well at home.
psychopaths, man. Like honestly, chefing is full of psychos, and you just 95% of chefs are just smoking sickies in an alleyway, sitting on a
Have seen them.
milk crate,
Yeah.
and then they come in and then they put like flowers on a dessert with tweezers, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense.
I washed dishes for about 3 weeks in a restaurant in Canada, and that was all I needed to see. It
Thoughts
was
on that
enough for me.
process?
You just get treated pretty poorly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was doing it as a gap job, so I already had like a career, and it's like you were just the dirt washing the dishes.
In Australia, I would always say, now this isn't racist because I'm going to say something nice about
Well,
someone.
you've already said this isn't racist, so 100% it won't be.
But I would like almost hire exclusively Nepalese guys because they are
Okay.
just fucking workers, man. Just like like Gurkhas of the kitchen, right?
In any role, you're not just limiting them to dishwashers?
Oh, yeah,
Or you
definitely
were-
of slaves. Yeah.
Gurkhas of the kitchen.
But they were great. So yeah, you get the. I've been through all the races, but I've found that Nepalese are generally the best kitchen hands.
That's a loaded statement.
Yeah, I've been through all.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone.
Well,
If I get cancelled from the Imposter podcast, I'm really surprised.
it comes with a disclaimer.
Yeah.
Well, they're supposed to, but
So even getting into being a chef, that was a massive jump from you being a soldier. What was the catalyst to going that direction?
Because ever since I was young, I used to cook. I cooked in my spare time. When I was in the military, I was the guy that everyone would come around my house and I would be like, hey, have you guys tried panna cotta? And they're like, we don't know what those words mean together. And I'm like, come around, bring your missus. Like, it was just something that I liked. I enjoy. I had my head stuck in cooking books constantly, and pretty ashamed to say this, but it wasn't until like MasterChef came out, and I was like, holy shit, this is like a whole thing that you can do if you want to. There was like these people on it that were like, I'm going to change my life, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to go on a TV show. I'm just going to do the process properly. I want to learn from the best and do all this sort of stuff. So around the same time, 7 years of military came to an end. I got in from 18, left at 25, felt like I'd done enough. And I was like, surely life just works. You just go and follow what you like doing. Surely that's how life works. And I just threw it all in to go and do that, and did that at the highest level in Australia for like a while. And it felt good. It was almost like what I didn't get at in the military. I was like, when I was in the military, I was probably like a 7 out of 10 soldier, which is pretty high because a lot of them are
It's not bad. Yeah.
Let's be honest.
What's the median?
A lot of bad soldiers are. Like I wasn't keen, and I could never go to special forces, but I was not a sack from any stretch of the imagination. So I like looked at this thing in chefing, and I was like, I want to work in fine dining in the best places in Australia, because to me that's like special forces of that particular skill. And I was like, I want to see what it's like to be at the higher echelon of something. So I just went down the rabbit hole and did that, and it was good until it wasn't. It was actually amazing for a while there, but
Turning your passion into your job sometimes is not the ideal thing. Did that happen in the long run?
yeah, totally. I mean, I joined the army because I thought it was cool as a kid, and then that ended up being like way worse on your knees than it was when you're a child. Then I was like, I'll cook, and then I went into cooking, and then I was like, oh, this sucks, and everyone's on drugs. And it's like it's like don't meet your heroes, right?
Yep.
But your heroes is sometimes your profession.
Yeah.
And then once you get
You can't escape it.
well, then you're stuck, right? And
I find meeting your heroes sometimes makes it easier to strive. Because you meet them, you're like, oh, they're just some loser.
Lowers your expectations.
yeah.
explain that. So you think it's like it makes it more attainable?
It makes it more attainable, but it also makes you go, what was I doing thinking that person was that far up on the pedestal? Like that person's so much better than me, whatever. But it's funny, the closer you get to meeting your actual heroes, and you're like, oh, they're just a normal dude. But then you meet other people that you didn't have up there, and you meet them, you're like, that's a better dude than I thought. Like Matty Morris, for example. No idea. I didn't have him up on a pedestal. He was just a cool bloke. I was just like, cool, he's just one of us. But I met him, and I was like, this bloke's really actually...
Nice fella.
Yeah. And
I did, hence why I was very nervous.
I know.
The intro.
You're fangirling hard. But it's, and that's the difference, like afterwards, like now I fangirl, whereas I was just like, yeah, he's a dude, I like him. But it's funny how you can meet some people, and it can either make your expectations go higher or lower. And you're like, I couldn't do what he's doing or something like that.
I worry about that doing what I do now is I feel like I'm on some form of upward thing that whenever I meet anyone, I try and just be really nice because I've been in plenty of conversations where people are like, oh, I met such and such, and they're fucking cockhead. And I was like, but like that could just have been the 3 minutes of the day.
Yeah, wouldn't it break your heart if you found out someone said that, but they only met you for 3 seconds?
Right? Yeah. I just bailed him up at a train station. Yeah, my car had broken down and this. And then they're like, hello, can I take a picture of you? And you're like, fuck off.
You get that a lot as coppers. Like you'll go from a job where like you've just, somebody's tried to resusc a baby or something, and it's obviously that's not a great situation when that doesn't go well. And then you'll go to another job where some lady's like, that guy's parked over my driveway. And you're just like, how's go if yourself sound? And then not a great way to deal with it. But she's just like, I've never dealt with cops before in my life, and you hate me for that.
The context of the situation.
Yeah. And it's the same thing where if you go and, like if I went and met Robbie Williams or whatever it is, and he's just had like 80 million taken from him from a divorce or something, he's probably not in his, he's probably not going, yeah, mate, no dramas. You want me to sign that for you? Yeah.
Has that actually happened? Did he get a big divorce?
No. I'm going to get sued by Robbie. But it's like starting
Robbie,
rumors.
if you're listening, we're joking, bro.
Yeah. No, but there's plenty of people going through divorces and all sorts of things. But, and you can never tell unless you're and they're probably not. Melgum's probably not going to tell you how his day was before he snapped at you and threw a phone like Russell Crowe.
True. Yeah.
So coming from the army, which is very skills and practical based, how did that translate into going into being a chef? I think you've said you went to culinary school.
Yeah,
as opposed to being
it actually translated
apprentice?
Incredibly. So not many people know this, but the founder of the Modern Kitchen, so a group of chefs is actually called a brigade. And the guy who founded Modern Kitchens is a French guy called Escoffier. And he essentially took people cooking and reorganized the whole thing into like a hierarchy. And he was in Napoleon's army. So he went pretty well, except for Russia. And then he went back there. He's like, I reckon we can really get some stuff done here if we just had some more organization on this sort of thing. So it went like head chef, sous chef. This is all just like military stuff put down all the way. If head chef wants to do something, he gets 3 people around him. Those 3 people tell another 10, and it filters down until everyone doesn't know what's going on. And so I just transferred straight in. Also, as far as like, and I don't want to say this in a bad way, but like the bullying, which I think is
culture,
which I think is quite good for young men who are soft to get bullied.
Yep.
To a point.
I think
that happens in the military,
just
happens in kitchens as well.
Yep.
And so when I went from 7 years in the infantry into like fine,
you were already a chief bully.
I was like, is this all you got, cunts? Like, this is, I used to get yelled for a living. This
Do they have a shit line in there?
Easy. Like, just you can achieve a lot in your life if you just don't get scared of people like trying to intimidate you. And when I was starting to learn, I quickly went to the top just by being like, how funny is that? When other people would be quite scared.
And those bullying and those jokes are often like a two-way conversation to see how people react to it. So you can assess, especially in military, whether this person's going to have my back, whether they can take a joke, things like that.
Totally. Yeah. And I think an infantry section runs very similar to a kitchen, which is a strange sentence, but everything's down to timings. Everyone's got a role. You want to cross-qualify on each role. So if something happens, you can slide in and you're all working towards something that is greater than yourself, being like we call it a service. So that is like how the night's going. And when you get it right, it feels great. Like a good service feels like a good section attack when you're like, that was really good, guys. Well done. My ass is sweaty.
You get malingerers in a kitchen or do they just
do you?
Oh, really?
100%. Yeah.
But they're not signed up for 4 years, so can you just get rid of them or do they hang
you can
around?
just fire them. That's what's good about working in a kitchen. People will – one place I worked, which was a two-hatted restaurant, by the time I left 2 years later, the whole 14 people had changed out. That makes sense. It was like cells dying off in a –
Doesn't that mean you are the problem? If you're the only one.
Okay. I never thought about that.
Thanks for coming.
It was me.
That's all we got time for.
It was me the whole time. Oh, well, this is good. Do you bulk bill with this therapy session?
Ooh,
that was a rewarding one.
Do you like that one?
Shout out, Savvy.
There we go. You're welcome, Mark Curry.
Clipped.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And timestamp is.
But it was good. And being in a flow is nice. Working in a team is cool. I don't know if you guys have experienced this. You probably would have in the police force to an extent.
We've talked about flow a fair bit on the podcast.
Cool.
Yeah.
My like sort of fangirly like flow thing would be when I see bands playing together and I'm like, fuck, that must feel cool as like when you're jamming and you go, I've got this thing, and then someone joins in with something else, and then like all of a sudden you're like, we're playing this song that ends up becoming something. Like that. When I look at that, I just don't understand how that feels, and I go, holy fuck, that would be so cool. And I think the closest I felt to that anywhere was in a kitchen.
And everybody's making something different, but it's going toward that dish at the right timing.
And time doesn't make any sense. Like it's like you get to the end of an hour and it felt like 12 minutes or something.
Well, you see the band members, like they look at each other, like somebody will start something and you'll see them going, oh, I love what you're doing there.
Fucking nod and shit.
Yeah, they nod. They're like, yeah, man. And then old mate jumps on board. He's like,
and that's cool. That's like the essence of life, I think. That seems that must have felt that way just like when you're a Viking. And you get off the boat and you're like, it was 3 weeks on the ocean and it was cold, and then you see this like unguarded monastery. You're like, boy, you ready? Boys, we are on here.
He was right. There was going to be bulk.
Yeah. So how does flow work in a kitchen? Are you doing like 14-hour days, or were they split mornings and afternoons? How would you keep that going through a shift?
The most hardcore one where I worked is we'd start work at 9:30 in the morning and we'd finish at 1 o'clock the next morning. And you'd do that for 6 days out of 7, which was hardcore. Wow. That was really, really hardcore.
So there's no drugs in it?
Yep, there was. And, definitely.
Was that from the Napoleon days, or did that come in later?
That's where scoffing your food came from.
Sure, because there's a lot of people on drugs.
Surely they had some amphetamines going on back in the...
I'm not sure what Napoleon was on, but yeah.
Wouldn't have been the same grade.
Would have been better, I assume.
It'd be purer.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be like refined.
I tell you what,
the meth nowadays.
I've done coke with a lot of people, and like snorting a line and being like, "Let's invade Russia" is the most quote thing I've ever heard. They're like, isn't it cold? We're like, I don't feel a thing. But
Yeah, look at all this snow.
We run it.
I never expected to talk about Napoleon as much as we have today, which is refreshing. What was the question?
Oh, with the long
Flow.
day, could you stay in flow through the whole shift?
We would have like a preparation period and then like a go time period. So you would have what we call mise en place, which is actually French again for everything has its place. And so you essentially prepare the whole day's worth, the whole 2 to 3 hour sort of like slam boom period, right? And then it's like, as it's getting closer to like doors opening, right? More people are coming in, people are polishing stuff. Like then the wine guy rocks up and he's like, what are we doing? And it's like this big build up of like all the elements like an orchestra almost are coming in to then boom, we're on, the door opens, you change. We worked in an open kitchen, so people could sit around the kitchen and those seats were more expensive. And which was wicked, by the way, because I reckon 1 in 5 people, 4 people out of 5 were foodies, but 1 in 5 was like some fucking tradie that has been with his missus for like 10 years and he's like, I'm going to take her out for something fucking special, right? So they'd be sitting there and we'd have these piping bags and like flowers and all of these like things. And he's like, oh, what do you fucking call that, eh? And you're like, yeah, this is great. And you're like, well, actually, it's smoked cheese. And then we put it through a, fine-grained thing and then we dehydrate it for 4 days. And he's like, whoa, this is fucking great. And he's like, I should have had that bong. This is wicked.
Was that the best customer, though? Because the other 4 are like
100%.
trying to tell you how to do things or, I've had this better somewhere else. Or
Totally. Yeah. And that is like the internet in all its amazingness that it's done great things. Obviously, we're speaking right now. Anyone listening to this is listening to it via the internet, so let's not shit on it too much. But it's has also allowed anyone with an opinion to have that opinion anywhere they go. And in the food industry, especially from the emergence of MasterChef and all of these programs where it's easy to pretend through big words to be an expert, they can then throw it on you and you're like, ugh. It's like going to the UFC with someone who just watches it once a year and they're like, he should be keeping his left up. And you're like,
Oh, man, I bought an Affliction shirt one time. I know. Don't you worry.
and,
well, it's like you're working in a kitchen, but you've got your comment section are actually just there in person.
exactly. That's a really great.
Is it sort of like Rotten Tomatoes, though, where like there's a audience score and the critic score? And then
that's yeah, definitely actually.
because it's interesting now because people don't really seem to listen to critics as much as they used to. Whereas before it was like make or break, wasn't it? A critic turns up and he'd said something and then people just wouldn't go anymore.
Because, and this is what the internet is doing, is decentralizing all of those gatekeepers, because the age would come out and it would have
cuisine or whatever
restaurants.
Yeah.
So that was the only source of how people would find out about what's up and coming, what's hot, what's not. People with a phone could then take a photo of whatever, add their words to it, and then they get their own following. And now people are listening to different sources of, opinion. But we're going to shit on some people right now. Food bloggers are probably the scum of the earth.
Want to pick one? Start some internet beef.
Anyone who, because there's like an up and coming scene of food bloggers.
Oh, okay, right.
So of the bloggers, the food bloggers,
will also kind of get paid to go there.
yeah.
So if you have a decent following, you can eat for free. That's the power of their thing. So there's like a commerce involved in their opinion, which is always bad. Because you're like, hey, if you run a restaurant, you can be like, would you like to come in? We'll give you $500 voucher, bring your friends. But we want like a good little review, right? Yep. Which means the truth isn't the truth anymore.
Yep.
And that's bad. And then there's another group of them which are like, they're trying to make a name for themselves. So they will be like nuanced in their delivery of what they feel about a certain thing. And you're like, it's chips and fries. It's fries and tomato sauce. And they're like the earthiness of the salt.
Yeah.
You're like, fucking shut up, bro. Like, so disgusting scene. I feel like anything that gets big has like a decent majority chunk of charlatans, and then a small amount of people. I just realized there's a cat next to me and it's moving.
Oh, I thought you were about to say you're allergic.
No,
I was like, this is going to go pear-shaped in a second.
And then there's a small amount of people who are experts in that field, and it's difficult to determine which one's which sometimes.
So is there a decentralized review now? Where should we go if we actually want to know
Yep.
Would it be good food? There's not.
There's
Okay.
not.
Yeah.
I think
Yelp.
it sounds weird, but Google's probably the closest thing. Like real people that can provide a star service to something without any vested interest.
Yeah.
But then I don't leave Google reviews on anything. Do you review?
Oh, I actually
No.
You would. What do you review?
Random places that I go to. Like if I go somewhere and it's good, I'm like, you know what, these blokes did well. Like I went to a DJ store the other day. And I bought a new cable thing for this, and I was like, those dudes were sick.
So
It
you're
showed me
allowed to
around.
spend some time and let them know.
Yeah, so I put that on there, and then like take some photos and put it up there for them and stuff like that. I did. I was actually doing a thing at the start when I first started doing it. It was to stitch my mates up. So I'd go to like a KFC, and you'd take a photo of them eating their meal, and you put it on Google, and you'd see how many views you could get.
That's a good game.
And then I'd just screenshot it like, hey mate, 24,000 people saw your stuff in your face.
When I was in Adelaide, so have you been to Adelaide?
Yeah,
You know Hindley Street in Adelaide?
yeah.
Don't know the streets, but
It's like dodgy red light district, right? So I was
Crazy horses there.
I was staying in a hotel there, and I wanted to get a massage. Now there's 12 massage places on Hindley Street open till 3
Funnily
a.m. in the
enough.
morning, right? And I'm like,
All completely kosher.
I said, I don't want a rub and tug. I want a massage, right? I want to get an actual
pointed.
massage. So I jump onto Google to figure out which is going to be the one to go to. Yeah. And people have left fucking reviews on rub and tugs, right? And it's sick. But So I didn't end up going for a massage. I spent 2 hours just scrolling through like rub and tug reviews. Because
I have seen those reviews.
I had noticed that there'd been a whole bunch of women who didn't know the situation and had booked trips to Adelaide. And then they just booked like, call it up. Hello, you got 2 o'clock. We've got 4 girls coming in, and they're like, yeah, no worries.
I guess.
Making
Yeah.
money. So then they're obviously not getting them off. So then they're just, I don't know if you know much about rub and tugs, but the rub part is terrible. Right? It's definitely emphasis on the tug.
Yeah, one's lowercase, one's capitals.
But so then there's all of these women being like, worst massage ever, right? And it's fucking sick. And I was reading this one, and it's like, it had a 3-star review, and I was like, this is quite odd for a rub and tug, right? And it started in capital letters, and it said inconsistent. And it said, I went for a massage on the 23rd of the 4th, 2019. It was the worst experience of my life. The floor was sticky. The girl smelled of cigarettes. And I'm sure she had no experience. Then the next line was, my husband enjoyed his. That's a fucking rip.
separate rooms, obviously.
There was
their
one
massages.
I saw on there where somebody, they were talking about one of the ladies that runs it, and they're like, we got chased out of there with a broom. I was like, wow. Oh, it's classic. And so I walked past there and had a look, and there was an angry looking lady in there. I was like, I believe that. I believe that review. It's
Make
like-
a booking.
We have learned a lot about reviews. This is a 1-star podcast, by the way.
To
that
go.
you're on.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, no, there's plenty of good reviews, but we've honed in on the 1-star.
Have you
that
got a
we've given.
1-star review?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
well
think
done.
we know
Welcome
who
to
it
the
might
market.
be. We're circling in on them to
Yeah, we've got
call them out.
a side quest now. Everybody's trying to find who this person is.
As
for us.
someone who has made 450 TikTok videos and had like 25 million views, I will tell you right now, guys, please don't focus on the bad guys because they will only increase.
Yeah, but that's the thing. We just want to get the first one, make an example.
Yeah, what if we make a parody of it? Is that a double negative?
Don't get into it. It's look, I will give you a window into my mind. The sooner that you just figure out how to just go, your life gets easier. Like, realistically, how many minutes have you put into this 1-star review?
Well, it's been on 3
it's
podcasts
like, it's
so
a joke because we probably do know them personally, so we're trying to hone in on it.
Has someone actually given you a 1-star
It
review?
came really early when it was just being sent out to friends and family.
Yeah, as in
And we're
before we went live.
That's a dog act.
Yeah.
That sucks.
That's why
If you're listening, whoever the fuck you are,
they're listening. If they've 1-starred us before we went live.
listen. I know who you are.
Yeah.
I have
well,
a certain set of skills.
Well, they know we have a certain set of skill sets.
Yeah, that's a dog act. Absolute dog act.
Yeah. Other things. Have you looked at police station reviews?
No.
Oh, welcome.
I didn't even know they existed.
You
Lots of
are
5-star.
welcome. There is so that the toast is shit. It's never warm enough. It's amazing. You love it.
Are these police officers?
No, they're like it's funny. There's smart ass cops that'll do it as well, but there's a whole bunch of crooks that'll do it. They're going.
you have
I
to-
stayed there for a weekend. They didn't. They didn't feed me that much. It was cold. The blankets were crap. The beds are hard. It's great. You
Did
love
you
it.
get there for 2 days and just walk out the door and be like, well, I'll fucking show them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we used to have a thing in the foyer where you come out and there was like a happy face. So it had like the red angry face and then
Like
you
at
had the green.
7-Eleven.
Yeah, it's the same thing. But they'd have it there, and then they moved it under the camera so you could see who was doing it, because you had like cops as they'd walk out just going, "Yeah, no, we're great." And then you'd see some dude on the camera and he'd be sitting there with his bag full of all his belongings and stuff, because he's obviously been arrested for something, and he's like, "Nope, I didn't enjoy my time here."
I think you've just wiped 2 days off my life by going into
At least.
At least, yeah.
I've just made you a whole new TikTok though.
Does anyone care? Like, does the police station rating matter to anybody within the police force?
They get a survey when they leave, and they do care about that.
Yeah, the actual
So you
feedback.
get handed a real one.
No, it's like a verbal thing that gets recorded.
So when you leave, the
that
sergeant's the sergeant's like, "Are you happy with how your treatment went? This and that, rah, rah, rah." They're like, "No, he punched me in the dick," or whatever it was at some point. And you're like, "Yeah, that's probably not great," and it gets investigated. But if you just do like a sad face on the way out, like, I don't even know why they have that thing. It's so stupid.
I can't wait to figure out which one is the best and which one is the worst.
Yeah. And then your actual Google reviews is completely different. Like no one could care less on that. It's just people just ranting. It's great.
I never thought for a second that would even be an option.
We used to sit in the watch house just having a look, going through different stations, see where we rated compared to other stations. It was hilarious.
Those ones didn't get taken to heart though, just our podcast ones.
Oh, sometimes you did. If they were like, "Oh, it's actually really good there, you get fed well and stuff," like I was disappointed with that. I was like, it makes people sound like I want to be here. I was like, this is not.
We're going to be busy. We're booked out all weekend.
Because they had that on Christmas Day. People would actually commit crimes to get into jail because they got a decent Christmas dinner.
Wait. What's Christmas dinner at the police station?
No, the station is crappy.
In the prison.
In prison?
Yeah, in prison. Oh, I think that's like the one day they get like hams and stuff.
Ham?
Yeah, look, we had like homeless people who were saying they'd do a crime in like November so they could go to jail and then get like, because they were like, oh, they actually look after you on Christmas Day.
Homeless people have no plan for it.
Yeah. I know where I'll be next year. It's like next summer. I'm going to the Margate. This is good times.
So you've been working in the restaurant, and what I've sort of heard you saying is that was actually a live performance, but you hadn't got into comedy yet. So was that actually like sort of where that formed that you might want to?
It's interesting because comedy wasn't on the radar for me whatsoever. Always was a good storyteller. I never thought that I was going to be a performer, but then once I started comedy, all my old military friends were like, "Oh, that makes sense." And I said, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Oh, you were the morale guy." Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I did do a lot of impressions in the military. I had all the sort of the hierarchy down pat, which is good. Got into a lot of trouble at Singleton actually for that.
You always like was it Black Hawk Down
where the School of Infantry?
That's exactly what. Yeah. We had this one guy whose voice would break, so he would call drill and he'd be like, "Ugh," and it was the best. So I thought it'd be great one day to form everyone up and just do that.
Oh, yeah.
Which the whole platoon embraced until that motherfucker was right behind me, and I think I lost a weekend or something. It was worth it. It was a good gig, but it worked.
Like 100% worth it.
And was this one of your instructors while you were doing initial employment
it was the
training?
sergeant.
There? Oh.
Infantry sergeant at Singer.
Yeah. Yeah, dude.
It would have been popular after everyone got punished for that.
They just took it on me, which is they went,
that's
everyone
nice.
else get out of here except for you. And I was just like, holy shit. Yeah, it was like my first big sort of like good gig though.
But on the upside, it could have been worse if he'd said you can go away for the weekend and everyone else is here, because that would have ruined your life.
Would never come back.
Yeah.
So, and then in the kitchen as well, I mean, I just used to tell military stories, all of those ones that are just like outrageous, and the civilian population are just very interested, I find, about that sort of stuff. They ask dumb questions. Did you ever shoot a gun? And you're like, I just used to lie and be like, no, actually, you can't do that unless you get qualified in the triple rocket launcher.
Is that
like what's the triple rocket launcher? I'm like, well, a rocket launcher. And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, imagine 7 of them. They're like, didn't you say triple? And I'm like, yeah, triple means 7 in the army. And they just walk away and just tell people different.
It's like drop bears with America.
Definitely.
It's like, oh yeah, must be a thing.
And that would entertain me, like people, my favorite would be the old question. You might get this in the police as well, but it's like, I was in the army. Oh, do you know Jono?
Oh, 100% you know Jono.
And I would be like, I love Jono.
Yeah.
I love Jono. I'm like, this high with brown hair, Jono's the best.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh yeah, it's cool. And I was like, and then I would always say to them, I just want to let you know I was really upset that they wouldn't let him be trans. And they're like, what? And I go, oh, sorry, that's classified. And then I just shut up. And then I just let them have their Christmas,
Yeah, lovely.
In a state organisation, it's actually upsetting how often you do know the Jono.
You do know.
You're like, oh, yeah. What? How do you know him?
Well, usually the Jono they speak about has done some things.
Yeah.
That's what you know that Jono. Everyone knows him then. That's a bit
Stole a
different.
baseball bat, yeah.
Yeah. Was you, back in the army, like we obviously used to talk a lot of shit back then, but a lot of it was about what your actual job was. Like were you Townsville?
Yep.
Yeah, because that was much the same. We were in the same the same realm of ladies where you had to lie to about what your job was. What was your favourite one? Because we had Dolphin Trainer on Lego.
Pistachio nut farmer from Ipswich.
Really?
Yeah, in town for a nut convention.
I was going to say, does Zach get any follow-up questions? But I reckon the convention part might have.
Just in town for a convention.
But that's interesting though. I like that because you've picked something that's pretty outrageous but not ridiculous.
And it's a good nut. Like you don't like...
Is that what the convention talked about?
People are like, you don't go pistachio and they go, ugh.
Yeah.
You go, oh, fun, interesting.
Yeah, because you can get peanuts and take them or leave them. Yeah.
That was kind of my go-to, which is, it's interesting how normalized that lying to women is. And how the Townsville population will also embrace it. And they're like, he tried to lie to me, but I found out, so I married him.
Yeah.
There they would all know that that's a lie.
Right. So it's all this game that everyone's just kind of...
And we had it like over leave because everybody was growing a beard as soon as it was leave. And you were like, I'm not in the army. Look, I've got a beard. And then like the expert lady would be like, she's like, look what date it is. It's like leave started 3 days ago.
The expert lady.
Yeah. The one that knows all about AJs.
So is there stereotypes in Townsville? Is that what we're...
No, not even a little bit.
No? Oh.
Mate, there was bikies, miners, AJs, and then there was like the actual people. And the actual people were never out in the town because it was not safe for them.
I never actually saw an actual person the whole time I was there. Yeah. I still think it might be a myth.
The 6 weeks before I left, I was like, you know what, I'm going to turn my life around. I'm going to stop drinking every night and doing whatever else it is. And a mate of mine was like, come down to the Esplanade during the day. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I've never been there. He's like, there's an 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. There's people playing touch footy, people running around, they're roller skating up and down. It's like California. It's crazy. It's amazing though. Yeah, you can go to Maggie Island. I've just looked at it for 2 years. I never went there.
I was just in Townsville end of last year. First, I'd been back for something prior to that, but funeral actually. So, but this was the first time going back in a nice way. And I was like, this place is okay. It was was quite nice. You been there?
I haven't, no.
Do it. If you want to see some bogans in the wild.
No, it's actually really not. And it'll be heaps different anyway now. Like they'll have more than one traffic light and stuff. It'll be impressive.
It will, yeah.
Is the Cry still there?
No.
What?
It's there, but it's shut down.
Oh, wow.
Wet T-shirt competition on a Sunday.
Yeah.
I was telling someone about this wet T-shirt contest, right?
Yeah.
was extremely popular. There were hundreds of people there.
Oh, it's 100%. Sunday session.
Hundreds of people there, right? And it was anyone could enter. And
and it was encouraged.
What did you win? Money?
Yeah.
Quite a lot.
So it used to be $500 and then they jumped it to $700 and then it went to $800.
That's heaps of money, right? So all the local professional sort of like strippers would get involved, but the audience didn't want to see them.
Yeah.
Like,
I see you at Bullwinkles.
I see the lady that's had fucking 8 pints and has been egged on by her mates and has a bad diet, you know, like.
Man.
And then I've never seen so many untalented people win a crowd just through sheer stage presence and just be like, get amongst it, like just fucking ripping this thing and then just wipe the floor with like professional dancers.
There was also
Loved it.
They had your backpackers come through. There was this one Swedish backpacker that came through, and she would just come in, win the competition, and then piss off for another week because that was her. And I'm sure she was doing other ones. Yeah, she had paid $800. This is like a 2003.
Professional wet T-shirt.
Yeah.
Did she wonder why she had to keep coming back to Townsville to find
she
such an
probably
event?
she probably had to find other ones to go on the way around. But the ones that you were talking about, the crowd favourites, like there was this one girl, she got up and she just brown-eyed the. It's such a wet T-shirt competition.
I haven't heard the word brown eye in a long time.
Yeah, like because other ones were like, oh, we're mooning him and this and that. And this chick's just like, nah, have a go at what I ate for breakfast.
Did she win?
Yeah, obviously, because everyone was just mortified, but they were like, nah, we're cheering that. That's one of the boys right there.
That's what I like about North Queensland. Is like anywhere else in Australia, like this stuff is still gone, but there's like a cultural element of it. When I was last on tour up there driving through, I think it was in Miriam, it's somewhere crazy, but like there was a pub that had a sign that said it was half price schnitzels and half price strippers. And I'm like, there's a lot to like about this, right? And then it had a slogan, which I was pretty happy about it. It just said tits and gravy. And I was like, yes. I was like, good on you, Queensland. I just absolutely froth it.
St Kilda had a tits and schnitz.
Tits and schnitz.
Can't even say it, but yeah.
Nice. Very good.
Probably,
good times.
the only place that's surviving.
Yeah. I can't remember where we went off from the narrative to
I think we were talking about
tits and gravy.
the hat system.
Well, so you went from being kind of the morale guy.
You said exactly. That's exactly.
That's it.
right.
This is his job. He
And
tries to keep us
then-
on flat.
How good's autism?
Yeah.
Jumping a long way forward, you're a touring comedian, just been part of the comedy festival. How do you go from just being the morale guy in a section or in the kitchen to that?
To how do you go from being being a professional comedian? Well, I like to think, if you want to get philosophical, I'm not a professional comedian. I'm a professional failure. I'm professionally at failing. Comedy is like real fail heavy, if you can imagine. It's just it's hard. It's totally hard.
Well, the hard part would be going back and doing it again and again.
The hard part is starting and then not knowing if anything's going to happen, and then having a period of time where it doesn't work, and it just is so confronting that you have to just rely on the fact that you think you could do it and push through, if that makes sense. I think we discussed this after my gig the other night, but the way I equate it is, imagine if you wanted to play guitar, but when you were learning guitar, you had to do that in front of an audience. So even the first time when you're like, bow, 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 there's like 20 people there like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like that's what comedy feels like. And it's extremely confronting. I sort of stumbled into it and I found this activity that was wild. Going through a bit of an identity crisis. Like I'd been to the military, enjoyed it, loved it, didn't get what I wanted out of it, to then transferring to like my perceived passion and, dream in quotation marks, to then that sort of didn't fall apart. It's more like dissolved over like a long period of time, to then it was gone before I'd realized it was gone. And so then when I realized, it was like, oh fuck, this is pretty saddening. I was actually pretty sad that I didn't have what I wanted.
When you said you didn't get what you wanted out of the army, what were you expecting? Like, what were you hoping was going to happen?
I mean, I was 18 when I joined, so I wanted more trips. If I would be honest with you, I wanted that. Didn't happen for me.
Because you had Timor, didn't you?
Just had Timor, yeah, and just missed out on doing a bit more, and I kind of felt that I'd spent many years training towards something that never happened.
Do you reckon if you'd got Afghanistan or Iraq, you would have been different?
Tough one to compute. I mean, you got to be happy with the path that you've taken. If I look at my life now, it's incredible. And does this exist down a fork in the road that never happened? You can't. You can go down that road for madness, and a lot of people do.
I just
That's
find
how
that
depression gets made. If I did this, this would happen, but it fucking didn't, right? So,
well, I've spoken to people who went to Afghanistan and then they were upset that they weren't SF. So they were like, I didn't get as much out of Afghanistan as I thought I was going to.
totally.
So I just want, and then you look at the blokes in SF and they're like, yeah, we're mad dogs. And then
Special forces.
Yeah, but then when they come back, then they're like, well, now everything else bores me in life and there's nothing else for me.
You just gotta be happy with what happened in your life. And I'm not sure if I had gone to Afghanistan or Iraq that money would have changed what I did, and I would have pursued cooking as hard as I did, to then have an identity crisis, to then find an artistic expression, which has then led me to live a life that is quite frankly fucking amazing and like cool. It's not like famous and glory, but it's like really interesting. I wouldn't trade this for anything. So if you were to like be a genie and put it all back on the table and they said you could have had this experience but you don't know what's going to happen now, I wouldn't pick it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All I've got is now, and it's cool. So I think that's a thing. People forget that, and you can't live in the past.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of old army dudes who are like used to be good guys, and now, quite frankly, they're just fucking broken records that are a bit boring.
Oh, definitely. We have heaps that we speak to. They got out and like they did 4 or 5 years, and then you speak to them 15 years later. You're like, oh, what do you do yourself? Oh, yeah, remember when we were back in 3CR or 2RR? And you're like, yeah, but that's 15 years ago.
But what are you doing now?
Yeah.
And more importantly, how do you feel, and what do you think about, and what drives you, and what interests you, and like how are you making like the world a better place from where you left it? Like that's what matters to me. And I think on the flip side as well is like, man, people died on the trip that I was like could have potentially mathematically been on.
Yeah, definitely.
I think
Wouldn't have been us, though. It's
I
always one
hope
of
I
those.
get this right, but there was like 3 people that were killed from like the friendly fire stuff, and when that was going around.
Would that have been your trip with it?
Could have been anyone. Yeah, it definitely. And then there was a couple of IED stuff, and it was like, that's bad. And
That's not even
people
a
that
tra-
were
it's not even a
physically and
training
mentally
thing.
injured.
Yeah, like that's just literally
That's just a
which car were you sitting in? Yeah.
Totally. So I wouldn't like to think what my life would be now if I had like severe mental health issues that I was then had to get through or not get through. I think maybe it was the best thing that never happened.
So to get to your perspective now, that is pretty rare and unique. Has it taken to get there, or did you figure this out sort of along the way somewhere?
I don't want to be. I was going to use the word gay, but that's not right. I don't want to be gay about it. I don't want to be gay about it in a way that doesn't mean homosexuality whatsoever. I don't want to be gay about it. Yeah. But finding an artistic pursuit has been super powerful for me, and especially something that has required me to fail is strong. And after the name of your podcast, to feel like an imposter at all times whilst doing something that is really difficult is good for you. And that has allowed me to think through achievement of doing something that is extremely difficult to build like a sort of pride around my achievements, to then feel like I can achieve anything in life if I just do the small steps for like a 20-year period, has allowed me to look back and reflect on something I couldn't do as a younger man, which I hopefully can do in 20 years' time on my 30s, and so on in life until you're old and nobody respects your opinion.
So what you've said there, small steps over a 20-year period, that seems to be the commonality that's coming out of all of this is, we're talking about the imposter, but that's often when there's a big leap. But the people that have just kept chipping away and making incremental steps and doing slightly new things, they're the ones that just end up killing it down the road.
Zoom out on the graph, it's like the stock market, right? Don't worry about the ups and downs. It's like invest in yourself and then watch the returns, right? It's and then do little things over a long time and then, cash in when you're older. That's seems to be what I've noticed from I on purpose will hang around a lot of people that have, when I say successful, I mean emotionally successful. And that seems to be the takeaway is do what you love, do it well, make it a practice, dedicate yourself to it, don't be toxic about it, and do it consistently over a long period of time, and then look back on your former self and laugh. Like it's really interesting. Like you guys will find this as people who are starting a new pursuit in the podcast world, that you'll be really happy with something that happens, episodes that you do now, and then look back on it episode 100 and think it's dog shit. That is a really great place to be. That's a really great place to be, because that means you're growing and the imposter is moving with you, right? And then you'll be the same thing. Oh, I wish this, or this person's on Sunrise. Like, we've been asked to be on Sunrise. How does this feel? You don't even see yourself growing, until you look back on the person that you were. I think you guys are like, you probably don't feel this way, but you're kind of getting some artist about you. What you're doing is it's almost like it's dabbling in art, and it's cool, because I think when you work for someone, your metric for success is very clear. If you don't get fired and you get paid, that's it. When you attempt to work for yourself and achieve something for yourself, the metric of success is very subjective, and that's cool. I'm really excited for you guys. It's going to be fun to watch yourselves grow.
I think it's interesting because if you go from, like, I went military into police, where me having any sort of creativity or, innovation or whatever it wasn't really rewarded / encouraged / shut the fuck up.
Unsanctioned
most of the
creativity.
Time. Yeah, unsanctioned creativity. I like that. But it's, it's different than working for yourself. And then your metric for success can be so small. Like we after we had 1,000 downloads, we were like, we're taking the piss. What? It's like, how many times have our friends listened to it? And then we went from there to, then we've got 2,000 now. But now randoms have started messaging us saying, hey man, I thought about joining the army and doing this and doing that. And we're like, this is 3 weeks, and
you'll be, and then enjoy it while it lasts, because 1,000 might move to be the not a metric of success any longer.
Oh, true.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you're always going to outdo yourself, right?
Do you have any advice on that? The bracket creep, the creeping excellence?
Yeah, I mean,
You've had
enjoy it.
millions of views over platforms.
Yep.
Are you looking?
Some of them happened
hunting for the billions
in 24
now?
hours, and then some of them didn't, right? Which is an interesting thing to get your head around. You need to be. It's like Marcus Aurelius, right? The Stoic emperor, right? He employed like a slave 24/7 to whisper in his ear, "You're only a man," just so he'd be like. Because if I do this too much, like it's going to get too crazy. I'll be fucking jerking off with a belt around my neck, like
In excess style.
So you got to do that for yourself, right? And be like, this is good right now, but then we might go through a period of 7 weeks where it's not as good, and you don't be as good on yourself, don't be as glorious on yourself as you do when it's as you're hard on yourself is like a good way to live, because we will often be hard on ourselves quite easily. But you can't think you fucking made it either. So just like sit in the middle and enjoy the process. And like, I guess it's like if you make something for you, if you make something you want to listen to, that will grow your audience way quicker than if you make something they want to listen to.
Well, it's funny you say we're making art. I don't know why I'm doing quotation marks. A, I'm on a podcast. B,
because
Imposter
art
about
feels
art.
like something you're not entitled to, and you have permission to like give yourself, and it's not the case.
And I can't remember what his name was, but he was saying once you've made the art and you've finished it, and you sent it out, it's not on you anymore.
This was the Rick Rubin.
Oh, is that what it was?
Fucking froth, Rick Rubin.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's it. Like I shouldn't, because then you start doing stuff like we have a girl, SJ, she's on, and she writes books, and she's on Inkit where they consistently can give her feedback about it. Oof. And which has been great for her because they pick up plot holes and stuff that she might not have picked up. She's like, great, I can pick that up early. But at the same time, it'll never be the same as if she just wrote it for herself and then put it out there.
Yeah.
So it's good because it's a community thing and it's growing fans and doing whatever. But on the flip side of that, she'll never be like, oh, they said this and that, I could have done that. And
that takes an incredible courage to, I know this from experience, to say, I've thought of something, have it, and someone goes, this is what's wrong with it. Fuck, that hurts more than actually
That's
being
your analogy.
physically.
She's reading a book to a live audience and getting their criticism in front.
Man.
yeah, true that.
And
Well,
that's where Imposter freezes so many people.
Yeah.
Freezes them from action, because like I think there's a weird relationship with imposter syndrome that I think it might be mislabeled a lot of the time, where it's like you're not afraid of being an imposter, you're actually afraid of failing and doing what you need to be validated in the thing that you want to be. So it's not that you go, I don't think I'm worthy. It's like you actually can't take the hit.
Well, I think
you got to take the hit, right?
Yeah, and you might think you are worthy, and then someone else says, no, you're not. It's like that's
bring it back to what I'm doing is like comedy is so that, but like live.
Your feedback's so fast.
And you know it too. In the back of your head, you're just like, oh yeah, that one went better than the night before, or like, why didn't that work? Or I've got this new thing and like that they hated that, now they hate me. And
is there any other art form where you have to read, like if you're acting at a stage show, I don't think you would change it each night, but you said to us you have like 3 directions for each joke depending on the audience on the night. Like I can't think of something else where you would have to be that adaptive.
Maybe like freestyle rap is probably the only thing I can think of. Maybe debating.
Yeah.
Where you got to be like, this person's done this and then there's that. It's very fluid. It's probably the only thing I've done that's in the moment outside of podcasting. And like it's completely in the moment and it's really cool. There's almost like 3 moments and you're all in every single one of them. It's very difficult to understand. But 1 in 100 gigs as well. The last time I experienced this was in like a crowd of in front of about 180 people at the Comedy Lounge in Perth, is that you can be speaking and then there's another brain in the background, like almost like in a magazine loading up the next sort of like subject. But then also you can see what the audience is doing and you can like appreciate it. And then somehow you just kind of observe the whole thing as well. And 10 minutes feels like a second.
I think that's what we were saying with flow.
It's so cool.
When you're in the zone or whatever it is, they say that sort of stuff.
Sex is good and drugs are wicked, but that is fucking sensational. Like if you could bottle that, that is really cool.
That's tapping into even the things that you can get out of combat, like auditory exclusion or out of body experience, things slowing down and actually thinking through the steps.
Yep. Both, I would argue as well, are made from the work and from the muscle memory and from the, in comedy, I would say training your wit, but I don't know what sure it is in like a leadership thing. It must just be like decision making. Super cool. It's great. And that like not working is more powerful than it working. And it doesn't work more times than it does. And it builds strength, but it also builds pride, which builds confidence. I tell you what, if you're fucking depressed and you want to not be depressed, there's nothing stronger you can do than make something for yourself that you are proud of and just worship that and show that to people, whether that's like a business or a family, like be like a good dad or something, or like, do you know what I mean? Like be good at something and work on it like as a patient practice is...
You get people make furniture and stuff a lot of the times on the side where they're
totally,
they're talking about the dovetail edges and all that sort of stuff.
I fucking love conversations like that when people get it. When you find someone's thing that they love,
they light up,
and they light up, and it's cool. And you're just like at a fucking party with your missus, and you don't want to be there, and you're hanging around the hummus, and you're like, "What's going on, bro?" And you're like, "Oh, what do you do?" And then they tell you what they do for a job, but then you're like, "What do you fucking actually do?" And then he's like talking about dovetails. I found what he does.
Yeah,
that is cool. I love that shit so much.
It's funny because there's stuff actually learned from people who actually love something, and it makes you actually now like that. Mm-hmm. Like if you had a maths teacher that actually liked maths and he thought it was the best thing ever and he was super about it, you'd be like, you know what, maths isn't that bad. But when you get a punter who's doing their job and they're like, oh God, I make frames, and then they don't care. Whereas, other people who make frames, they'll be like, oh, we made all these houses.
Yeah.
And, it's a different thing. Like brickies. Some brickies like, oh God, it's the worst job in the life. But they're like, oh, look at the frame around that circular, window. You're like, that's real hard.
You find that with welders.
Oh yeah. People talk that up all the time, don't they? Welders,
dude, I mean,
24/7.
Jump on the internet and watch some welding reels.
Yeah.
I'm like, I like welding. This is fucking.
Yeah, that can be
like there's pride in joining.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
It's
I love how many lessons there are on that as well. There's so many like YouTube videos on how to weld, and people are like, oh, that's amazing.
It's harder than it looks, I reckon.
Yeah, definitely.
I've never welded myself. You welded?
I have, yeah, and I'm terrible at it. I can admig like a good TIG weld on an exhaust or something.
No, here we go. You found it. You found his thing.
TIG. What does TIG stand for?
What does TIG mean? Tungsten inert gas.
Oh, wow.
You said that like you didn't.
Wow. Yeah.
You said that like you didn't.
I've never TIG welded, but I do admire people that can do it. I've MIG welded badly.
Oh, right. What's a MIG?
Russian fighter plane.
Can't remember what that one was.
It's obviously not tungsten, just metal.
But it highlights your point from before. There's different forms of art, and you wouldn't imagine if you start out as a boiler maker or a cabinet maker that you were going to potentially have an art form.
But go back to the military, didn't get what I want out of it. It's like, yeah, but who cares? Like, life's long. People say life's short, but it's actually really long.
What did they say? They say it's the shortest and the longest thing you'll ever do.
It's I don't know what percentage into my life I am. That's the beauty of it. I could be at 95% and there's something around the corner, or I could be less than half. Which is really exciting because I get to just do it as it unfolds. And if I get another 6 years down into comedy and I go, I don't think I've got much else to give to this, like, I think the lessons I learned from it will allow me to do the next thing just as patiently and practicefully.
That's another thing, though. When you said you didn't get what you wanted out of the last two careers, I wonder if that helps you drive you harder for the next one, because you're like, well, I need to find what I have because I'm getting older as well.
It did for cooking, and I think I went as hard as I could into that to prove a point. And that's what blinded me from seeing that it had dissolved until later, until it had proper – there's nothing underneath my feet, if that makes sense. Because I was like, as you can only do when you're in your 20s, I could be like, well, I'll fucking show you.
Yeah.
I'll fucking show you.
Bravado over imposter.
A chip on a shoulder when you're in your 20s is the best.
Which is powerful for a quick, push. Quick as in a couple of years. But it's not the foundation for something that you should dedicate your life towards.
Isn't it like motivation versus discipline or whatever it is, where motivation, you're like, yeah, I'm up and about, and then 30 minutes and you're like, yeah, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, and you give up. Whereas, if you've got discipline, you're like, you will do that over and over again because it's what's your why or whatever it is.
Well, how did you have discipline in your first 10 or 100, open mic nights? If you're bombing, was there something you loved in that, or did you know you were on the way to a process?
I'd felt like a frequency of exhilaration that was like, it was like what I can only imagine smoking ice is like, because I've never done it, thankfully. And also just quietly, if I did, I'd fucking be sick at smoking ice. I'd smoke all the ice, but not good for you. I've seen the outcome.
No, I have the same sort of personality where I'm like, I'm not getting into anything that I can get addicted to for that very reason.
I did once I had done a gig where I had controlled people's physical reactions through my words. It was very powerful. And I was like, ooh, what was that? So that was I wouldn't say chasing a feeling, but it was like chasing a potential to know that I go, cool, I've done this thing. Now how do I find more ways to do it and create different things? And then also seeing people that you respect within the industry do it harder than you have. Like when you see someone crush, it's so cool. Like live, you're like, holy shit, what are they? This person is got a whole room mesmerized. They don't even know what someone just fell off a chair. How hard it is for someone to just fall over from
especially in the new chairs. Yeah.
I was like, I want to know how to do that. That looks magical.
How much of it is audience based as well though? Because there's some audiences obviously that'd be better than others.
Most audiences are bad.
Are they better if they've come to see you, or if you're just an unnamed actor?
You just never know what's happened in life. It's like the parking could be terrible.
Oh, yeah.
The wife and the husband have just been like, we're fucking over after this gig. Now let's put on a smile face and walk in. You just mathematically, you can get a whole bunch of people that have had a bad day. We'll talk about this.
Yeah.
They're in the room and they're like, we're having a good time, but also I've thought of this great comeback to my missus and I'm going to tell her as soon as we get home.
Yeah.
You can't compete with that. You can't compete with spite.
The parking's something I wouldn't have even thought about, because if you turn up, like you go outside, you're like, oh, what's going on? There's roadworks and you can see people tooting at each other and you're like, oh, I'm in trouble here. They're already in a shit mood.
The same is with the inverse as well. And then sometimes you just get some magic and you're just like, everyone's just, and then like the moon. I'm really starting to, this is going to sound.
It's a thing.
Oh, dude, full moon.
Yeah.
Give me comedy on a full moon any day of the week.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Police, fire, ambulance won't disagree with you there. Yep.
Yeah, but
I heard a story that a lot of prostitutes will take the night off.
Yeah, well, it's no good.
Hospitals are full.
Full moons, yeah.
Mental
People go
health
crazy on full
admissions
moons.
go through the roof.
Oh, well, it's good for comedy.
Yeah, that's weird because we hate it. You see a full moon, you're like, oh, geez, we're going to be busy tonight.
I see it and I go, giddy up. Let's talk about the Jews. No. Disclaimer, jokes.
Yeah. Wow. Do you want to wrap it up on that note and we'll come back?
I think that's a good pause.
Yeah, great way to go out. We started on the Nazis and we went out the Jews. So.
We'll be back for part 2.
Zick Howell.
Great. Oh, do you want to play the outro?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
We've got a new outro with...
can I hear it first?
One?
Yeah. With Maddie Morris. So, hang on.
Just do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Just do it. Simple.